Hey all, here at OS Reviews, you're watching our unboxing and first impressions look of the Oukitel K10. This is a 6-inch phablet that has the newer 16:9 or 2:1 aspect ratio, and more importantly, it has a monstrous battery. It's the main selling point here. It has a 11,000 milliamp hour capacity, which is up to 4 times larger than a typical smartphone. Even larger capacity phones may only have, let's say, 4,000 or 5,000 milliamp hours, and at 11,000 milliamps, this thing should last you for a long time before you need to recharge it again. With that being said, it is a little bit on the expensive side for a unlocked Chinese smartphone. You can find it for as low as $250 versus a typical phone, let's say from Oukitel or Bluebo, that doesn't have the large battery but has similar specs, might be priced at, let's say, only $150. So you're paying a little bit of a premium for that extra battery capacity. It's not shabby either in terms of specs. We have, again, that 6-inch full 1080p display. It runs on Android 7.0. It also features 6 gigs of built-in RAM along with 64 gigs of built-in flash storage. So 6 gigs of RAM will ensure that you get very speedy and responsive multitasking. And there's also the typical Wi-Fi, GPS, Bluetooth. It also has a MediaTek Octa core processor clocked at 2 GHz, which is should be sufficient for most of your programs and apps. So it comes with a USB Type-C cable for charging. We also have access to an adapter for OTG. So you plug this into the phone, and then you can plug, let's say, a keyboard, a mouse, or any other thumb drives or hard drives, and the phone should be able to read it. There's also a 3.5mm adapter, so unfortunately it seems like this thing won't have a standard headphone port, but it does have Qualcomm's quick charge technology built in. There's also a SIM ejector tool. Over here we also have a secondary accessory pouch for probably the charging adapter that simply uses USB. All right, so popping this out of the packaging here, first impressions is it's a very hefty phone, as you would expect from having such a large battery pack. One of the reasons why it does feel a little bit more hefty is actually because they have a rubber case pre-attached onto the phone just to protect it during shipment. It's a soft carrying case, and you can kind of see some of the ports already. Let's remove this for now. And there's also a screen protector that seems to be pre-applied. Right, so on the back there is a protective film that we can remove. It also includes the IMEI number. This is a dual SIM phone. It's a quad band GSM, supports 4G LTE in certain countries. Underneath here we have a very interesting texture that tries to simulate leather, but it's probably just a synthetic material. Still, it has a very premium look. It reminds me more of a, let's say, luxury phone, maybe something by Vertu, rather than a typical, Samsung or OnePlus that goes for a sleeker look. But this has a more utilitarian, more of a rugged design going on, which I can appreciate considering the extra battery in here. The sides here are made out of chamfered aluminum, and there's also keys for volume rocker and a power switch on the side. The top doesn't feature anything at all. The back features 2 cameras, so you can capture bokeh effect. It's a unibody finish, so the back cover doesn't come off. And the back here also features the speaker as well as the microphone and the USB Type-C for charging, and it seems like it's turning on right now. Some of the parts here are coated in a layer of soft touch rubber, so again, as a whole, fairly strong and premium construction quality that definitely matches the slightly steeper price point here. So we're booting up to what seems like a fairly stock version of Android. Immediately we can tell that we have a pretty bright and vibrant display. Again, it's 6 inches, it's full 1080p, and has a slightly stretched aspect ratio 2:1, which is the new standard that makes watching videos and for media consumption more enjoyable. The front here also features 2 cameras for selfies, which blurs out the background for selfies, which is quite impressive. I believe it's about 8 megapixels, and there's even a LED flash just for the selfie camera, so that should be pretty impressive. There's a earpiece. You can see the screen also has these little rounded corners that we're starting to see more and more on these 18:9 aspect ratio phones, and it gives it a slightly more premium look, in my opinion. On the bottom here, it seems like there's not going to be any keys, so all of the controls are virtual and on screen. All right, so we're going to tap on Go, and we're going to skip SIM cards. Again, a very stock install of Android, it seems like. We're going to have to see if there is a scan or launcher that is put on top of it. But first impressions, it seems like the screen is actually quite sensitive, and it's fairly easy to type on with the built-in keyboard. You can see the bezels on the sides seem to be fairly respectable. We're going to add a fingerprint next, so just tapping it on the control in there. I'm going to start slightly shift it around just to add all the different parts of my finger, and it's very similar to Touch ID on, let's say, an Apple iPhone, in the sense that you can just tap on it once to turn the phone on, and you can also use it for mobile payment. And we are now booted into the OS. So again, it seems like it's very quick to launch. There probably still is a launcher or at least a theme package on here because some of the icons definitely don't look like they're stock Android, especially on the bottom here with the dialer pad and some of these contacts lists. So Oukitel probably customized some of these, but we have access to all the standard Google services, including Chrome, YouTube, Maps, Gmail built right on in, and I can just swipe up to access the launcher. As you can see here, it's fairly quick and snappy. Of course, we have to download some more apps and do more benchmark testing, but so far it seems to be, again, quite responsive, and the display on first impressions also seems to be quite good. Again, it's an IPS panel with fairly generous viewing angles. Track down notification tray on the top here, again, pretty standard. We do have, again, NFC on board, which is yet another unique selling point because many of these Chinese phones will not have NFC, and that simply means you can, again, use this with Google Wallet. And there's also about an 98% of battery left on first boot, so there's a lot of juice right out of the box. Looking through some of these details, indeed we have, again, a main camera up to 21 megapixels autofocus, secondary camera 13 megapixels, screen resolution right there, 6 inches, and 64 gigs of built-in storage, and again, Android 7.1.1 Nougat. So again, things seem to be actually reasonably up to date, which will allow you to install the latest apps and games from the Play Store to your content. A quick size comparison, here is the K10 next to the Le Eco Le Pro 3 AI, and this has a 5.5-inch screen, but it has the older 16:9 aspect ratio, so it's a little bit wider. Again, this has that 6-inch panel. You can see kind of the difference there. What I want to really emphasize here is I have also an iPhone with a 5.5-inch screen, so this is the same size as something like, let's say, the 7 Plus or 8 Plus, and what we can see here has almost the same size in the front. The iPhone, again, has a 5.5-inch screen versus the K10 6-inch display, since this thing does have smaller bezels on the top and the bottom, and that slightly stretched aspect ratio. This one has right now a wallet case or a thick rubber case on, and the incredible thing is it's basically the same thickness as the K10, as you can see there. The iPhone is in fact a little bit thicker now with that case on, so really this is not bad at all. So that's been our unboxing and first impressions look at the Oukitel K10. Again, unique because it has that monstrous 11,000 milliamp hour capacity battery, and at the same time it's not ridiculously thick. It still feels like a premium kind of luxury stylized smartphone, and it has also fairly respectable features and specifications for the price, including NFC as well as a fairly capable octa-core MediaTek processor clocked at 2 gigahertz and a whopping 6 gigs of RAM, which makes it, again, a pretty good value for under $250, especially if you're interested in getting a long-lasting smartphone that you don't have to charge every night. This thing will probably last you, let's say, 4 or 5 days before you need to recharge it once, maybe even longer if you don't turn on the wireless options all the time. So be sure to stay tuned for our full review coming out soon, but this has been our unboxing first impressions. Here are OS reviews. This is the Oukitel K10.